So how often do you put countless hours into a song and then it still turns out sounding like absolute doo-doo water?
This is me. You're probably wondering how we got here. But to understand that, we're first gonna have to go back. Whoa, not that far back. Hi, my name's Sam, and I'm here to help you make music today. So grab a notepad and paper, because I have this piece of paper that lets you know I know what I'm doing, and I can help you. Just trust me.
All right, so we want to take your song from that amateur sound all the way up to a pro sound, but how do we do that? Luckily, I've developed what I call the thick with 3 C's method, and those 3 stand for convincing, creativity, and a good mix. So first, let's talk about convincing. What exactly do I mean by that? Well, this is something that I feel like I don't hear people talk about on YouTube, and that is that each of the individual elements of your song should convince your listener to keep on listening. So today, we're gonna hop into Ableton and pull apart an indie dance track that I just released called Final Fall. You can listen to the song wherever you listen on Spotify, Apple Music, if you wanna check it out, and then come back and watch the rest of this video.
I've been feeling so out again, don't feel quite like myself.
So to make each of the elements of your song a convincing piece on its own, there's a couple different things that you can do. The first thing you can do is what I call variants. By adding in small, slight changes between each of the takes, each of the choruses or verses, you add an incredible amount of depth to your recording. So one way that I added variants to my song is by adding different layers and octaves to my synths during the final pre-chorus of the song. The normal synth progression during the choruses sounds like this. During the final pre-chorus, I added higher layers up the octave that started to build tension. Another way that I added variance into the song is actually with the guitar recording. Even though the guitar plays a very similar part every time, I had my friend Mike, who played guitar on this song, change the expression each time that we recorded. And then during the second chorus, he plays the same part, but with a more full sound. Another thing you can do is timing. In this track, I heavily adjusted the timing of the bass to fit directly in the pocket of the drums. So yes, I painstakingly went through the entire song to make sure the drums and the bass hit at just the right moments. Okay, so you can make each of the individual tracks sound very convincing by adjusting their timing or adding in some flair with variants, which that's going to lead us into the next C, which is creativity. It's probably not surprising to you that you have to be mad creative to make a good sounding song. So how do we be creative? Well, let me just show you a few tricks that I pull off in most of my songs, and this is gonna kind of give you a head start. In the final chorus, I wanted my vocals to really stand out above the rest, so I added a vocoded sample of my vocal to automate in and add a whole new level to the main vocal.
Wanna take my final fall.
So it's a very subtle thing I did, but it really helps it poke out in the total song. Another creative hack that's really easy is adding a bunch of swells with sounds you already have in your song. So in the guitar parts, I added a swell into almost every new section of the song, and it sounds very subtle. That adds so much tension to the song. And listen to it into the first verse here. So one very easy creative hack that you can implement into your songs is the final chorus. You can take out the instruments and let the vocals kind of be the anthem to the song. Really, it could be as easy as just deleting out some of the other instruments right during that first portion, letting the vocals take the reins, and you can hear I did a bass and a drum fill there too. So you have variants, you've become very creative in different parts of the song. Now let's talk about the mix. The most important thing when it comes to mixing is getting good performances. If you are starting with a crappy sound, It doesn't matter what the heck you do to it in the mix. Listen, crap in, crap out. I'm trying to save you some time here. I'm going to break down each instrument here in the song, and if there's a particular instrument that you struggle with mixing, you could just skip to that part of the video. First, let's talk about the drums. It was really important to me that the kick had the most amount of impact, and the drums really set the tone for the rest of the song. So I actually used 2 kick samples layered in this song, and you can see that I'm boosting some of the resonant frequencies down low to get that low impact, and a little bit here at 5K. And the other kick, I'm actually taking the low end out so that this first kick can drive the low end. This other kick is just kind of adding that nice high hiss, and they sound like this. Then the snare, I'm not doing anything too crazy. Once again, just boosting some of those resonant frequencies and a little bit of high end, and then adding a little bit of tape saturation as well. Hi-hats, slightly panned left, like a normal drum kit would be, a little bit of boosting in the highs. And where my drum kits really come together is that I group them up and then process them all as one instrument. So all of the compression and EQ and effects are also being done globally. So I have the side EQ that's just boosting a little bit of lows, mids, and actually a lot of highs. I have an SSL stereo compressor on there, just an Ableton stock glue compressor. Once again, tape saturation. Then this limiter on the end, which is literally just barely moving at all. I have a video on my channel breaking down drums a lot more specifically, but you can see I'm not doing anything too crazy. Just a little bit of EQ and compression, and it makes the drum sound like this. More than EQ, more than compression, just make sure you get your levels right for your drums. Make sure that your kick has a lot of presence and the other elements kind of just sneak up there with it. Next, let's take a look at the bass. I actually separate my lows and my highs out, and I do that by just putting an EQ with a low pass shelf at 120 hertz and then a high pass shelf at 120 hertz on 2 separate chains. So I'm using a mono compressor on the lows. If we take a look at the highs, boosting a little bit around 800, a decapitator for a little bit of fuzz, and then a saturation as well. I did end up using a little bit more EQ. It looks like I think I went a little bit crazy, but I made the bass sound exactly how I wanted. You just got to keep sculpting and molding until it sounds like what you're going for. Okay, synthesizers, super easy. EQ, I'm cutting out most of the low end because I just don't need it. A glue compressor and some compressors that are just side chaining from the kick and the vocals so that the vocals, kick, and synths are all kind of pulsing together. Also, during the breakdown, I have this arpeggiated synth, which is kind of panning from left to right. And so you can hear that sidechain from the kick really coming in. It's pulsing in and out. All right, so let's look at the guitars next. So I have a couple guitar tones, but during the chorus, you're going to hear this tone the most. So I'm basically just adding some space with this Dreamy amp space and then also an align delay. So I'm making it play on the left and the right, and I change the timing so that you get this nice little stereo image. Almost no EQ on these guitars. I just cut a little bit of the low end off, and once again, we have those side chains from the kick and the vocals, so they're not overlapping too much. Like, really, guys, it doesn't have to be that complicated. I usually keep my vocals quite simple, and I just have 2 falsetto takes that I did pan left and right to add some depth. Yeah, that's my falsetto. You like that, right? And then I just overlaid the main take. EQ, de-esser, 2 compressors, not really doing much, and fresh air because this plugin is free and it's just too clean. From there, I just have a basic delay happening, micro shift, which is a great plugin from Soundtoys, and everything is also going to a little plate. That's pretty much it. I have a delay that's kind of coming in and out. That's about it for my vocals. Nothing crazy. Another little slight hack I have in my mix here is actually something turned super far down. I first started the song on an acoustic guitar, and I ended up keeping those parts in, but you can see I have them turned way down here. It's just a slight little texture. You could barely even hear it whenever you listen to the full song. See, it's so quiet. Even whenever you put just the bass on it, you can barely hear it. but it's still there. And even though it might not be heard, it is still perceived very slightly. So having those little things in the mix is going to add that pro edge that you're looking for. Always have a reference track. Okay, when you're mixing, it's very important that you're matching the style, sound, levels of another song that you're kind of trying to model after. So I'm constantly A/B switching back and forth from my reference track to my track to try and match the levels and the entire vibe of the other song. Don't look at it as like you're trying to compare yourself to this other song, but really that song is already well established. You just want to try and line up so that if someone hears their song and then your song right after it, they feel like they're still in the same mood. Awesome. So if you follow the thick method, then it's definitely going to improve your song, add that variance, add that creative flair that I know you definitely have. When it all comes together, you're going to be super proud of your work. If you want to find out how to mix drums a little bit more in depth, then you can check out this video here. Hopefully this video helped, and until next time, peace.